You think you're alone on the night shift? Think again. There's a certain kind of quiet that only the deep of night can bring, especially in places that are usually buzzing with life. Factories, offices, warehouses. When the lights go down and everyone clocks out, these spaces become vast, echoing tombs. And who's left to stand watch over these quiet, empty worlds? The night shift security personnel. They're the forgotten guardians, the silent sentinels. Most of them will tell you it's a boring job, filled with endless rounds, bad coffee, and the constant hum of machines that never truly sleep. But sometimes, just sometimes, that profound silence isn't empty at all. Sometimes it's just waiting. Waiting for something to stir, something that shouldn't be there, something that shatters the boredom and replaces it with a cold, creeping dread. Tonight, we're diving into some of those chilling encounters, experiences that turn even the most stone-faced guards into believers. And we're going to focus on one story in particular, a story that peeled back the layers of a man's skepticism and left him utterly exposed to the true terrors that lurk in the dark. Picture this. Our guy, let's call him Mark, a veteran security guard. He'd seen it all, or so he thought. Years on the job, mostly in warehouses like this one. Huge, cavernous buildings filled with towering shelves and silent machinery. Mark was the definition of practical. Ghosts, spooks, he'd scoff at the idea. His biggest worries were usually a faulty lock, a misplaced pallet, or someone trying to swipe a box of goods. He was a creature of habit, clocking in at dusk, making his rounds, checking doors, logging temperatures, and then settling into his small, monitor-filled office for the long stretches of quiet in between. This particular warehouse was no different from the others. Cold concrete floors, high ceilings, rows and rows of industrial shelving, and stacked containers. During the day, it was a beehive of activity. Forklifts zipping around, people yelling orders, the clang of metal on metal. But at night, it became a monster of shadows and echoes. Every little creak, every distant whine of the ventilation system became amplified. But Mark was used to it. He knew the sounds. He knew the rhythm of the building. He felt safe, secure, even a little smug in his belief that the only things to fear were human. His routine was a well-oiled machine. Coffee, check the perimeter cameras, first patrol, log everything, maybe read a book, second patrol, and so on until dawn. The warehouse was his domain, and he ruled it with an almost comfortable indifference to its vast, silent emptiness. He often wondered what people thought happened at night, if they imagined shadowy figures or strange noises. He just saw rows of boxes and the glow of his monitor. But that night, his perfectly ordered, logical world was about to be turned inside out, piece by agonizing piece. It started subtly, as these things often do. A sound. Not just any sound, but one that didn't fit the warehouse's usual symphony of groans and hums. Mark was in his office, sipping stale coffee and watching the static-filled screens, when he heard it, a faint scratching, like something dragging its claws across metal. He frowned. Rats, probably. This was an old building, after all. He made a mental note to call maintenance in the morning. But then it happened again, louder this time. A distinct thump scrape, followed by a soft, rhythmic tapping. His eyes darted to the monitors. Nothing. Just the endless, empty aisles. He knew the general direction the sound was coming from. The far corner of the warehouse, near a section where oversized shipping containers were temporarily stored. One in particular, a massive, sealed metal box, had been there for weeks, awaiting transport. It was a cold, windowless rectangle of steel. Mark grabbed his flashlight, his heavy keychain jingling, and walked out of his office. The air in the warehouse was always a little cooler at night, a damp, metallic chill that seemed to sink into your bones. As he approached the container area, the sounds grew clearer. They weren't rats. This was something bigger, something with more deliberate force. It sounded like something was inside that sealed container, trying to get out, or maybe trying to get his attention. He shone his light over the corrugated metal walls. Nothing visible, no dents, no signs of forced entry. The container was locked tight, seals intact. He even pressed his ear against the cold metal, feeling a faint vibration, hearing a muffled, scratching sound from within. It sounded distressed, or maybe angry. He tapped on the container with his fist. "Hello? Anyone in there?" His voice echoed eerily in the vast space. The sound stopped immediately. Complete silence. Mark waited, listening. He circled the container, checking every seam, every lock. Everything was secure. He rationalized it. Maybe it was just the expansion and contraction of the metal in the cold, making strange noises, or a settling of the contents inside. Yeah, that had to be it. He was a logical man. But as he walked back to his office, a tiny, uncomfortable knot began to form in his stomach. The sounds didn't feel natural. They felt intentional. The next few nights, the noises from the container continued. Sometimes a low moan, other times a sharp metallic clang that made Mark jump in his seat. He'd go out, check, find nothing, and come back more unnerved each time. His skepticism was taking a beating, but his logical mind fought back hard. There had to be an explanation. Maybe someone had accidentally sealed an animal inside, a particularly large metal-scratching animal. It was a stretch, even for him. Then came the morning he discovered it. He was doing his final patrol before his shift ended, checking the shipping container for the umpteenth time. As his flashlight beam swept across its side, something caught his eye. Right in the middle of the smooth, dark gray metal was a mark. Not a scratch, not a dent from a forklift. This was different. It was a perfect, symmetrical handprint. Not like a human hand, though. The fingers were too long, too thin, and there seemed to be too many of them, or perhaps they were just blurred. And it wasn't just a print on the metal. It looked as if the print had been burned into the steel, the edges slightly discolored, raised, almost melted. Mark stared at it, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He reached out a trembling hand, tracing the eerie outline. It was cold to the touch, colder than the surrounding metal. This wasn't some natural phenomenon. This wasn't rats. This wasn't metal expanding. This was physical proof, undeniable and terrifying, that something was in there, or had been there, and it wasn't human. His rational mind, his steadfast skepticism, crumbled like dry dust. He felt a cold sweat prickling his forehead, despite the chill of the warehouse. He was no longer just hearing things, he was seeing things, things that defied all logic, all reason. The solitude of the warehouse suddenly felt less like peace and more like a cage. He was trapped with whatever had made that mark. He tried to call his supervisor, but his hands were shaking too much to dial properly. He left a garbled message describing the mark, his voice thin and reedy even to his own ears. He felt a primal fear, a deep-seated terror that he hadn't felt since he was a kid afraid of the dark. But this wasn't a child's fear. This was the fear of an adult facing the utterly impossible, the truly unknown. He didn't know what to do. He just stood there, staring at the burned handprint, until the first faint rays of dawn painted the sky outside, chasing the deep shadows from the warehouse. Only then did he feel a tiny bit of courage return, enough to clock out and flee. Mark didn't want to go back to work that night, but he had bills to pay, a job to do. He walked into the warehouse that evening with a nervous knot in his stomach the size of a grapefruit. The supervisor had dismissed his concerns that morning, blaming stress, a late-night prank, or simply his imagination. "Just stick to your patrols, Mark. Nothing's going to hurt you." Those words echoed hollow in his mind as he settled into his office. He avoided the corner where the container sat, trying to bury himself in paperwork, focusing on the mundane, but his eyes kept drifting to the monitors. He had turned up the brightness, trying to pierce the gloom of the warehouse, feeling an intense, unsettling urge to scan every inch, every dark corner. The night dragged on, slow and heavy. There were no strange noises tonight, no clangs, no scratches. The silence felt even heavier, more ominous than usual. It was the kind of silence that screams something is about to happen. Then, just past 3 a.m., as he was about to nod off, it flickered across one of the screens. At first, he thought it was just a smudge or a glitch in the old camera feed. But then it became clearer, sharper. In the far aisle, right beside that sealed shipping container with the burnt handprint, a figure stood. It was tall, impossibly thin, and shrouded in shadow, almost like a ripple in the darkness itself. It wasn't solid, but it wasn't transparent either. It simply was. Its form was elongated, its head tilted, as if silently observing its surroundings. And then, slowly, deliberately, its head turned. It turned until it was looking directly at the camera, directly at Mark. He froze. His heart slammed against his ribs, a frantic drum against his fear. He couldn't breathe. The air in his lungs felt trapped, cold and heavy. He couldn't move. He couldn't even blink. He just stared at the monitor, at the impossible, spectral figure staring back. It felt like an eternity, that silent, terrifying stare down through the lens of a surveillance camera. There were no eyes to see, no mouth to speak, but the intention was clear. It was watching him. It knew he was there. It had been watching him all along. The figure didn't move otherwise. It just stood there, motionless, a silent, shadowy sentinel, mirroring his own terrified paralysis. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone, just flickered out, leaving behind only the grainy, empty feed of the warehouse aisle. Mark gasped, finally able to breathe, but his lungs burned. He slumped back in his chair, trembling violently. He wanted to scream, to run, to smash the monitors, to do anything to erase what he had just seen. But he couldn't. The image was burned into his mind, just like the handprint was burned into the steel container. He wasn't just skeptical anymore. He was utterly, irrevocably terrified. He spent the remaining hours of his shift huddled in his chair, facing the monitors but unable to truly look at them, listening to every whisper of the building, every creak, every distant hum. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his core, that he was no longer alone in that warehouse, and he never would be again. That was the last night Mark worked at that warehouse. He quit without notice, packed up his life, and moved across the country. But what he saw, what he heard, what he felt in that empty building followed him. He became a different man. The old, practical, scoffing Mark was gone, replaced by a shadow of his former self. He couldn't sleep in the dark. Every little noise at night made him jump. Every shadow in the corner of his eye became a threat. The profound isolation of those late-night hours had not only opened his eyes to something beyond understanding, but it had also stolen his peace of mind forever. Mark's story, chilling as it is, isn't unique. Across the world, in countless silent buildings, night shift personnel face the unknown. They are often the only human beings present when the veil between what we understand and what we can't begins to thin. Alone in the dark, they become incredibly vulnerable. The empty spaces, the hushed echoes, the routine that breeds complacency, it all creates the perfect stage for the truly terrifying to reveal itself. These are the unsung heroes and the silent witnesses, trapped between the security they're meant to provide and the inexplicable terror that sometimes seeks out. Their stories serve as a stark reminder that some corners of our world remain profoundly mysterious, and some quiet places are far from empty. What starts as a mundane job can quickly become a descent into a nightmare, leaving a lasting mark on those who dare to stand watch when the world sleeps. If you found Mark's chilling tale as unsettling as I did, hit that like button. And if you want to dive deeper into more real-life encounters with the unexplained, then this video right here is exactly what you need to watch next.